the volume numbers are now up in the high teens, you can see that I was right. The second story was published in Volume 4, and I later sold 2 Tarma and Kethry books to Daw. But this is how the two met in the first place. The air inside the gathering tent was hot, although the evening breeze that occasionally stole inside the closed tent flap and touched Tarma's back was chill, like a sword's edge laid along her spine. This high desert country cooled off quickly at night, not like the clan's grazing grounds down in the grass plains. Tarma shivered. For comfort's sake, she'd long since removed her shirt, and now, like most of the others in the tent, was attired only in her vest and breeches. In the light of the lamps, Tarma's clansfolk looked like living versions of the gaudy patterns they wove into their rugs. Her brother-uncle Kefta neared the end of his sword dance in the middle of the tent. He performed it only rarely, on the most special of occasions, but this occasion warranted celebration. Never before had the men of the clan returned from the summer horse fair laden with so much gold. It was nearly 3 times what they'd hoped for. There was war a-brewing somewhere, and as a consequence, horses had commanded more than prime prices. The Shina'in hadn't argued with their good fortune. Now their new wealth glistened in the light of the oil lamps, lying in a shining heap in the center of the tent for all of the clan of the Stooping Hawk to rejoice over. Tomorrow it would be swiftly converted into salt and herbs, grain and leather, metal weapons and staves of true straight-grained wood for looms and arrows, all things the Shina'in did not produce themselves. But for this night they would admire their short-term wealth and celebrate. Not all that the men had earned lay in that shining heap. Each man who'd undertaken the journey had earned a special share, and most had brought back gifts. Tarma stroked the necklace at her throat as she breathed in the scent of clean sweat, incense, and the sandalwood perfume most of her clan had anointed themselves with. She glanced to her right as she did so, surprised at her flash of shyness. Darren seemed to have all his attention fixed on the whirling figure of the dancer, but he intercepted her glance as if he'd been watching for it, and his normally solemn expression vanished as he smiled broadly. Tarma blushed, then made a face at him. He grinned even more, and pointedly lowered his eyes to the necklace of carved amber she wore, curved claws alternating with perfect beads. He'd brought that for her, evidence of his trading abilities, because, he said, it matched her golden skin. That she'd accepted it and was wearing it tonight was token that she'd accepted him as well. When Tarma finished her sword training, they'd be bonded. That would be in 2 years, perhaps less if her progress continued to be as rapid as it was now. She and Darren dealt with each other very well indeed, each being a perfect counter for the other. They were longtime friends as well as lovers. The dancer ended his performance in a calculated sprawl, as though exhausted. His audience shouted their approval, and he rose from the carpeted tent floor, beaming and dripping with sweat. He flung himself down among his family, accepting with a nod of thanks the damp towel handed to him by his youngest son. The plaudits faded gradually into chattering, as last to perform, he would pick the next. After a long draught of wine, he finally spoke, and his choice was no surprise to anyone. "Sing, Tarma," he said. His choice was applauded on all sides as Tarma rose, brushed back her long ebony hair, and picked her way through the crowded bodies of her clansfolk to take her place in the center. Tarma was no kind of beauty. Her features were too sharp and hawk-like, her body too boyishly slender, and well she knew it. Darren had often joked when they lay together that he never knew whether he was betting her or her sword. But the goddess of the 4 winds had granted her a voice that was more than compensation, a voice that was unmatched among the clans.